Welcome to White Belt Wednesdays. I'm your host, Travis, and today we'll be diving into the world of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with essential tips and tricks in bite-sized podcast episodes every Wednesday. Ready to level up your skills? Well, let's roll. All right, guys, today I want to talk about grips and why you're probably using them wrong or you're probably not using them at all. So one big thing that changed my jiu-jitsu journey is the idea of grips. And at first, I never thought about my feet being grips, but now, thanks to people like Jordan Pressinger and actually my jiu-jitsu coach himself, he mentioned that you should be having all four of your limbs doing something at all times. So whether it's gripping with like the instep of your foot or whether it is the grabbing a lapel or whatever it is, you have to remember that your hands are grips and your feet are grips. Both of them should be used the entire time. Now, one way to think about utility-wise, how to use your feet as grips, say if you're in back control and you want to secure one arm so you can go 2-on-1 with one of their arms, you can use your legs and feet as grips to control that one arm. And that's something a lot of people, especially at white belt, probably might not think about, is your grips equal control. The better grips you have, the better your control is going to be for your against your opponent. So if you have grips that don't do anything, then you're just wasting your time. During my first competition, I talked about how if I didn't have dominant grips when I was grabbing a lapel, a sleeve, whatever it is, and I was just going to let it go. Because a lot of times, especially at white belt, what we'll do is we'll get a hold of some sort of material or one limb, and we'll think, I cannot let this go. This is the most dominant position I can be in. If I let go of this grip, then the person's going to get around my guard or whatever. And that's not true. Your techniques you hit are based on the grips that you have or based off the grips that you don't have, right? So if you are going for an arm drag, then you're probably going to go for a 2-on-1 on an arm, right? Say you go to De La Hiva, you need to grip with your feet as well as grab a sleeve and collar or double sleeve or whatever it is. You need to make sure that you are having grips that you are controlling your opponent with. Say if you want to stop your opponent from posturing up, then you need to grip their head, grip their lapels. If there's no gi, maybe have like an underhook. You're trying to like break the person's posture down, double full Nelson from inside your guard or whatever. So that's something you have to think about also. And grips are made to control, so you don't need to break grips that don't control you. Remember that. So say if someone has a grip on one of your sleeves or the bottom of your lapel and it's not doing anything to stop you, there's no reason to waste the energy on breaking that grip from this person. So think about what this grip is doing for you or against you. If your opponent is just focusing on just holding on to your belt as hard as they can, there's no reason for you to worry about that. As long as you feel that it's not doing anything detrimental to you, right? So keep that in mind when you are thinking about what your opponent's grips are doing. You need to also avoid your opponents locking their grips together around you. So say if a person has a body triangle or a person has a body lock or their closed guard or a triangle, these people are locking their grips in on you. And it's a lot harder to break these grips once they get locked on you, right? So keep that in the back of your head. If a person has their feet crossed or let's say X guard, right? When you're in X guard, not single leg X, well, even single leg X too, but an X guard when those feet are crossed on that far side leg, right? You don't want that to happen. You want to break one of those grips. Say if a person has a lasso or spider guard, those are dominant grips, right? Because they're using both. They're basically 2-on-1 on both of your arms because your feet are grips. So think about what you have to do to break those grips and don't allow them to get those grips locked on you, because once that happens, then you're going to be in a world of hurt, right? It's going to be a whole lot harder to get around those. And like I mentioned earlier, when my professor Sean came to our academy, and he was like, "Hey, make sure that your hands and your feet are always doing something. They're not just sitting there being useless," right? And I really try to think about that now as when I roll, because I want to make sure that I'm both of my hands are holding on to something, or they're framing, or I'm trying to get a grip on something, and I'm trying to ensure that when I do get this grip on my opponent, that it's useful. You know, I a lot of the times when we first start, we'll think we have something dominant, we'll think we have something good, and it turns out it's not good. Or we think our opponent doesn't have anything from their grip, and then we're passing our professor's guard, and we're like, "Oh yeah, I'm about to get it, bro. I'm about to pass my professor's guard. So what if he has a hand in my collar? That doesn't mean anything. He can't choke me because I'm gonna pass his guard." And then you pass his guard, and he rolls over and hits you with a baseball choke, and you're sitting there thinking like, "Oh my gosh, that completely sucked. How did he get that on me? I didn't even think about his grips doing that to me," right? So that's something to think about also, because a lot of the times we don't see these grips being beneficial to our opponent or being beneficial to us until we get hit with a sneaky submission, we get hit with a sneaky sweep, and we're like, "Gosh, dang it, man." Another thing, when I was doing my first competition against my match against Benjamin, who was on the podcast, who won Masters World this last year at Blue Belt, uh, he he had grips on me during our match that I didn't even realize that he had until I rewatched the footage, right? So this goes back to another thing about recording your rolls, because a lot of the times you will think that you're doing something good, or that you have dominant position or dominant grips on someone, and then you'll rewatch and you're like, "Why was I grabbing there? Like, this does absolutely nothing for me." And in my match against Ben, I didn't even realize that he had a grip on or my pants when he swept me, or when I was going to pass his guard. He grabbed my ankle and swept me, and luckily we got reset, so we didn't get points on that, because then my match would have been gone even worse for me against him. He ended up beating me, like it was like 19-0 or something like that. He just completely dominated me. So, but just think about that when you're rolling with someone. Where are their hands? Where are their feet? Are they going to stop me from doing what I want to do? Are they grabbing something that I actually need? You know, because once you start paying attention to your grips and where they are, you'll start to realize techniques are just different grips. That's all they are. Submissions are just different grips, how you're holding on to the body, right? And if you can establish dominant grips in a dominant position to where the person, they don't have anything, right? They're just completely thrown to your will, then you will start to realize, man, I got this dude's arm trapped. He ain't going nowhere. Or I got this lady's arm trapped. She ain't going nowhere. And life isn't get much easier for you. So think about your grips. Think about where they are. Remember, key takeaways: hands and feet are grips. Grips are control. Don't break your opponent's grips if they aren't controlling you, or if they aren't going for something that's beneficial to them. And avoid locking grips. So avoid people gable gripping you, 2-on-1, close guard, whatever it is, crossing their feet in a dominant position. And I promise you, things will look better for you. Let me know if you guys start paying attention to your grips. And that's all I got for this one. Thanks. Peace. Thank you for listening to this episode of White Belt Wednesday. If you have any questions or comments, please message me on social media, and maybe they can even become a future episode. Don't forget to check out the Patreon for early and exclusive content. Links for everything are in the show notes.